Yo, what's up? Welcome back. Today I want to show you all the elements that go into a breakdown to make it modern, slamming, and heavy as shit. All right, so here's the breakdown. First, so this is the perfect track to do this video on because it's the cartoony version of what a breakdown is. It's an extreme progressive version of the typical standard breakdown. For me, breakdowns nowadays are kind of boring. It's just mosh call, same breakdown, same tone throughout the whole thing. No feedback, no danger. This breakdown, I tried to harness the feeling of when I was 14 years old, going to shows for the first time. I was 120 pounds, covered in Axe body spray, wearing Osiris shoes, getting chased by dudes like Ron from Float Face Down, Rest in Peace, and Charlie from Existence, getting punched by 300-pound, 6'4" men. You know that when there was a mosh call inciting a riot like burn this place down, or fire, or kill all your friends, or rip down the walls, followed by a zill bell, you know that the breakdown was about to be heavy as taint. Also, there was limitations because we would book these shows at VFW halls with 100-watt PA systems through 2 tower speakers where they couldn't handle things like 808s. So when the 808s from the backtracks would hit, they would distort out. The vocals would distort in the room. You would almost hear the vocalist over the mic and over the PA in the actual room. The guitars would be feedbacking in between chugs, and there would be a snare tuned so tight that it was about to break, sounding like a freaking basketball. So those are the elements that I tried to bring into this mix to make it feel dangerous and real, and the reason for why you have a breakdown in the first place, which is the apex of the song building up into this explosive part. So first things first, when the breakdown is building up, instead of the standard guitar chug leading up to the mosh call to the same volume guitar, I made sure that that pre-breakdown sounded like it was in the room at this VFW hall with sneaker noises going in the background. I actually should have added in the sneaker noises. That would have been sick. So one of the first things I did was I made sure that the drum kit sounded like it was in a room. So we got our drum bus here. I printed it out and then I ran it through this room setting right here. Off. So it feels like it's sitting a little bit further back. And then the same thing with the mosh call when that comes in. Distorting out the mic, and also you can hear the clean vocal coming through in a room. Blended pretty heavy, around 44%. Yep, nothing scarier. And then same with the guitar. Right? And then it kicks into burn this place down with the zill bell. I added in a couple more zill bells to really emphasize like that was a part of the culture. Think post Black My Heart, Thick as Blood, and pre-Attack Attack. What was in between that? This mix of tough guys meets melodic and zill bell choreography. So I added in these 2 zill bells. I distorted one of them, distorted the other one, and also gave it this sort of like YouTube to MP3 sound because you would watch how to mosh videos on YouTube when you were just getting into shows. Really sick. And then as it kicks in and we get into the drum section, there's a couple things that I did differently when mixing this kit so that it made sense to the actual genre and the breakdown. So let me just solo the kit so you can hear that first, and then I'll break it down. So it's sounding sick. There's a couple things that stand out to me that I mixed differently than how I traditionally would if this was just a safer sort of like August Burns Red breakdown, let's say. One of the things was I layered in some extra samples. I have an Eric Valentine snare, my snare sample, and then, which sounds kind of similar to the Valentine one, and then just a little deeper. And then also a basketball snare. I'm pretty sure this is a Suicide Silence snare. Really sick, so that's what gives it that basketball sound. And then usually I do run it to a snare reverb where I'll run the shells as well. This time I'm running the snare also to this snare room, and I have it 100% wet, so it sounds like it's in that short, small room, which really just gives the drums a freaking heavier impact. And then again, I just felt like it wasn't sitting like in front of me enough, so I gave it another blend of Valhalla Room on the actual last step of the drum bus. So check it out 100% wet so you can see how it sounds. sounds like you're standing 25 feet away from the drum kit in an empty room. So if you blend that into taste, then it feels like the drum kit is sitting a little bit further back from you, but still impactful and in your face. Next thing I would probably approach in this mixing process would be all the low end elements. So in this, because it is pushing the genre a little bit further and the rest of his song has like heavy autotune and hyperpop influence, there's 808s running throughout the rest of the song. So I added that into the breakdown as well on top of the bass and a programmed guitar. So check these out together. Really sick, really farting out the low end on top of that clanky bass and cutting really tight so that it matches the breakdown, so that when everything hits at the same time, the things on my master bus, like the compressor and soothe and anything sort of like that, is reacting at the same exact time. So it's this nice punchy attack on the one. When you go through and you edit things to be tight and then you mess them up afterwards and add your sort of like sparkly elements, I'll call them, afterwards, that's what to me makes things sound polished and finished. And then next we got our guitars. Here's the standard guitar tone that I added in. So just using neural DSP with an overdrive, which is like a tube screamer, into this heavier amp, which to me it sounds like a 5150. And then doing my typical sort of EQ, some RX to control it, some more EQ to add some highs, some more like troubleshooting EQ, and then soothe to balance it out. But if you check out the guitar take here, I tracked it separately so that the chugs were super clean, and then I did the murder chords on a separate take and then added them together. But also you can check out, I added in a splice sample sort of mimicking feedback that is on the actual guitar DI track. So this sample feeds into the amp. So it blends in with the rest of the track. And then we have one more just of the chug channel. On this channel, I have the octaver running, so it's just the octave down, and then the fuzz channel, and then the same sort of settings and treatment right after that. Now, a cool thing that I added on top of the guitars, when I pictured guitars back in the day, and I was running for my life in a VFW hall, in between the chugs, you would hear one of two things. Either one, somebody getting punched in the face, and you'd hear this in the silence, and I always thought that that was the craziest thing in the world. Or you hear the guitar feedback if they don't have a noise gate. So what I did was I sidechained just a straight feedback running to activate in between the chugs and the silence. I think that's so sick. And then in between that, I also added in some extra like sparkly stuff like this scream in between the chugs. To me, that was kind of like the room noise and the sound of a crowd. And then of course we have our impact effects. And then one of the most important parts of a classic breakdown is the sub and the impact effects. So I added in this sub here, and when I used to run shows, we had a PA system that couldn't really handle the volume of backtracks and vocals at the same time. So when somebody would have backtracks in an 808, it would fuzz out the speakers because it couldn't get loud enough or handle the low end. And sometimes the speakers would even start to glow because of how much power we were putting into them. But so I wanted to mimic that and rebuild that in this breakdown by adding in an 808 and then adding decapitator on top of it so it fuzzed out. Check it out. That's literally what you would hear when people were testing their backtracks before they would play their set. And then the last thing, like I said, the PA couldn't handle anything, so everything would get distorted, especially the vocals. And there's something I've been doing recently whenever I have a track that feels like it should feel futuristic, but also kind of like emo and throwbacky, and it's microshift. What it's gonna do is add a little wobble and a little bit of detune and spread to the vocal so that it feels like it's like coming through a TV or it's like in a music video. That's the only way I can describe it. Check out the vocals on top of this and check out when the 808 hits with those two toms and how it has silence and the only thing you hear is the 808. It's super sick. So that's how I add all these elements to make a sick, progressive, heavy, brutal sounding breakdown. Now, there's nothing wrong with writing a perfect song and keeping it safe to just deliver the message of the song, but this is extreme music, and this artist specifically wanted to push the genre and do something special. And me personally, as a producer, I like to lean into that sort of stuff because it's the most fun for me. And in the end, I want to harness that same feeling I felt when I was 14, first getting into music and going to local shows and seeing who could write the craziest breakdown or the heaviest breakdown. I think learning all the standard things that you have to learn about recording and writing music is important, but at a certain point, sometimes you just have to forget that, let it be muscle memory, and just create the craziest thing you can think of. So again, I appreciate you guys watching. I'll catch you next time. Write some sick shit, man. Get back to it.